Scotland and the United Kingdom's assets are in the North Sea. Gordon MacIntyre-Kemp is Chief Executive of Business for Scotland. They support calls for independence. And when you get the argument about how the oil industry would work under independence, I guess one of the questions is, would you be able to guarantee future investment, Gordon?
Well, I think that in order to maximise future investment, the best thing you can do is have a stable fiscal regime, a stable taxation regime for the North Sea oil industry. I mean, over the last few years, we've had 16 changes in the tax system, and I think it was mentioned just before there that the Chancellor, George Osborne, actually did a windfall tax on the Scottish oil firms, which went down extremely badly and cost a lot of jobs in the industry, slowed down investment. And we have people like Malcolm Webb, who was mentioned in your introduction there, the Chief Executive of Oil and Gas UK, said we've had three massive tax hits in the last 9 years that just can't go on, and it's given this country a terrible reputation for fiscal instability. The Chevron Chief Executive, John Watson, criticised the tax rise as well, saying the move made the UK one of the more unstable investment climates.
That is in the past, of course, but you'll also be aware that there's those inside the industry who would fear, about the future, because there will, perhaps the UK government is in a better place to guarantee investment.
I think not at all, because the UK government's track record has been absolutely terrible in the North Sea. It's been terrible in terms of maximising investment, but it's also been terrible in terms of the way they've shared the wealth. The economics editor of The Guardian, Larry Elliott, said that you could sum up the North Sea in 3 words: discovered, extracted and squandered.
When you say squandered, though, I'm interested in what you mean. If you're saying that it should have been put into a special fund and allocated...
Absolutely.
So what would you have cut? Because it was spent on public spending. So what would you have cut to make room for that fund?
Well, it's interesting that if you actually invest in an oil fund and you get the sort of returns that, say, Norway, for instance, has actually had, then it's not a case of cutting spending. It's actually a case of increasing the money that's available in the economy.
If we started now not putting in an oil fund, it would take years before you got a return on it.
Well, actually, from 1990 onwards, the Norwegians put an oil fund together, and that now has £470 billion on it. It actually received about a 14% return on investment last year. Now, I have a mortgage, which is a large amount of debt, which is at a low interest rate. I have a pension fund and I have a savings fund, and it's accepted by almost everyone as not a bad way to actually run your personal finances, and that analogy can be extrapolated to the country as well. Yeah. And the fact is that the reason we don't have an oil fund in Scotland, one of the 2 countries in the world, Iraq under Saddam Hussein and the UK, were the only 2 countries I can think of that had significant oil reserves, that didn't actually invest in the future and also invest in taking care of the volatility.
You're talking about the past, though, all the time.
I'm talking about the future as well, because I think it's a really good idea to start investing in the future right now.
But it's going to be something, whatever's happened in the past, the fact is that we've just talked, these are marginal oil reserves are going to be more expensive to extract and need a good deal of stability to guarantee that companies will get involved.
And that's exactly what the Scottish Government has actually promised, is stability. Now, if you look at the actual tax take, the windfall tax that George Osborne took, which I was mentioning before, it actually generated a couple of £2 billion worth of tax, but then it actually had almost exactly the same dip the following year in oil revenues. And what we've had since realising that mistake, he has then managed to work a little bit more closely with the oil industry under a lot of pressure from the Scottish Government and from the industry. And we've now seen one of the single largest, in fact, the single largest year of investment in the North Sea. It takes a couple of years sometimes for investment to actually turn into profit. So around about 2016, 2017, after independence, Scotland can expect a significant uplift in its oil revenues.
That's Gordon MacIntyre-Kemp, obviously putting the court case for independence. He's Chief Executive of Business for Scotland.